Well, look who it is back again. Today's practice, we are really going to explore the side body. You've got these muscles on the side of abdominals called your obliques. You've also got muscles that are deep in your lower side back called your quadratus lumborum. And they actually push right up against and are married to your psoas muscle, your hip flexor muscle. And I feel like your quadratus lumborum is one of those muscles that not everyone knows how to stretch it, how to work with it, how to explore it. So hopefully you'll have a embodied sense of what that is and how it feels.
So to give you some visual references, here's a body, of course, this is from the rear, and you can see that the quadratus lumborum aren't right on the surface like the triceps might be, but they're a little bit deeper in. Here is a front view that strips out everything else except the skeleton, and we can see where the quadratus lumborum connects here on the back of the pelvis, the vertebrae of the lower back, and also the bottom rib, the floating rib. They call it that because you can see the other ribs come around to connect in the front, whereas these are just connected to the spine. Going a little bit deeper into the connections, here is a rear view again, where we see the connections to the ilium crest. So this ridge of the pelvis, the places it connects on the lumbar spine, and also on this bottom rib. So as we tilt the pelvis, as we rotate the rib cage, we can start to maybe feel some opening happening here. So it helps to understand as you move how you can maybe start to lengthen this. And then this other picture is the front view. This just helps you to visualize the relationship it has with the hip flexor or the psoas minor, psoas major. These are both significant players in terms of tilting your pelvis backwards and forwards, and also contributing to how your lower back feels.
So, all right, let's get back to some movement. Some things you might need, I think a block or something similar is going to be helpful. In fact, we're going to start by sitting down, and so the block is going to be helpful with that. You shouldn't need a strap or anything like that. Always nice to maybe have a blanket or something to cushion around as needed. But let's get started, and we're going to start in a seated position today. So one of the things, and I'll take this opportunity to remind you of, is that a lot of times when people sit down, especially when they sit cross-legged, is that their pelvis tilts backward and their tailbone tucks underneath. And see the knees pop up. Even if the knees don't pop up, there's this rounding in the back. So what we need to do is try to liberate our pelvis from tucking backwards. So once you've sat down, and again, I'm using a block to sit on to help make this easier for me, and I really encourage you to do that. If you don't have a block, you can use a pillow, you could fold a pillow up or a couch cushion. So I'm actually going to take my hands and I'm going to lift my seat up and I'm going to tilt my shoulders forward and I'm going to tilt my pelvis forward. Okay, almost feels like I'm sticking my butt out. Now, as I do this, I'm going to keep that action in my pelvis, and then I'm going to bring my shoulders back on top of my hips. And it's almost like there's my tailbone is just like plugged down into the earth rather than it being tucked underneath. And this really helps keep a long spine. So go ahead and play with that for a moment here while I reorient. And you might have to do that once or twice. You might have to kind of wiggle it out. You might actually have to take your hands and sort of, move some flesh out of the way. So do what you've got to do, and then bring yourself into a still place. Crown of the head lift, shoulders relax, face relax as best as you can today. Now you might have some things on your mind, some things on your heart that are really keeping you from being present, and let's honor that. But at the same time, let's do our best to let that go. So with our next exhale, do a little bit of a horse breath. All right, so horse breath, exhale is just simply a let your lips flutter. Go ahead, do that 2 more times. So just take a nice big inhale in, let the lips be loose out of the mouth. Now, try to deepen your rhythm. Hopefully that helped to release a little bit. It may not have. Just keep doing the work to bring it back, bring it back, bring it back to here, creating some space for yourself. And the next thing we'll do is we'll bring our hands onto our sides of our ribs. So we'll give a little bit of resistance and a little bit of a tactile feeling of the rib cage moving out as we inhale. So when you start your next inhale, start by breathing downward. Almost feels like you're breathing into your belly. And you might feel your lower ribs gently start to push in your hands just a little bit. Now, as that continues, you're going to then start to move it up into the rib cage. So now the rib cage actively feels like it's pushing into the hands, not only to the left and to the right, but it feels like it's going in the 360 directions out. And then the last part of your inhale, you're going to maybe lift up your collarbone, your sternum, your chest ever so slightly, just a little bit. And on the exhale, retrace that. So the first thing that happens is the chest, collarbone softens. Next thing that happens is that the middle ribs all start to come in towards your lungs and heart. And then lastly, those lower ribs kind of start to pull in, right, as the diaphragm returns back home. Do that 2 or 3 times more on your own. I really encourage you to close your eyes here and like get lost and like visualize what it looks like as you inhale and expand downward first and out 360 degrees for the ribs, and then finally slightly up. And then exhale, like look at all that soften. Maybe relax your shoulders and your elbows a little bit more here. One more breath like that. And as you finish the exhale, go ahead, let your hands slide down into your lap. Again, sitting up tall through the crown of your head. And without judgment, if you feel like there's anything holding you down from the side, there's this story, Gulliver's Travels, that Jack Black, who, the comedic genius, he remade it, and so it's like this giant who, he wakes up and he's, tied down, by all these much smaller people and stuff like that. And sometimes I feel like the responsibilities or uh, old stuff is kind of like those ropes. Just sort of, I wake up and I'm sort of like feel like I'm being held down and held back. So we're, maybe not going to break those ropes, those chains, but hopefully we can loosen them up a little bit here today. But it's going to take a little bit of work, right? We can't just expect it to happen magically. So our effort is going to come into play. So with your next exhale, slowly just take the hands all the way out like you're tracing a huge circle all the way around you. And then exhale, bring it right down through your center. You might have to speed the movement up if your breath is a little on the shorter side. 2 more times. You might have to slow your movement down if your breath is a little on the longer side. Now on this third one, instead of bringing your hands down, I want you to keep your hands up. And I want you to interlace all of your fingers except your pointer finger and your thumb. Okay? Now, keeping that lifted, really reach this up. So pull up, but think about pushing your tailbone down into the ground. Now you can see that my shoulders are kind of starting to go up to my ears, so I'm going to pull those down gently. I'm going to draw my lower ribs in. So I'm really feeling integrated from my tailbone plugging into the floor all the way through the cylinder of my torso and up towards my fingertips. Now, keeping this on your next exhale, you're going to lean yourself a little bit over to the left. So you're going to kind of use that left hand to pull and reach that right hand a little higher. It's just a little bit of a turn here. And then send this right shoulder back a little bit. It's a little bit of a rotation. But then notice if that right butt cheek, that right sit bone is coming up. So kind of replant that, recommit to that. And then go ahead, bring back to center. And just go over to the other side. A little bit of lean first. Just a lateral lean, going over to the side. Checking in with ribs, checking in, making sure everything is staying connected. And then a little bit of roll back with that left shoulder. So you're looking up toward the ceiling slightly. And then using the right hand to lift that left side a little bit higher. And then slowly come back to center. One last reach with the fingers. Plug down with the tailbone. Big inhale here. And then exhale. Release the hands out to the side. Bring your fingertips onto the ground, or maybe your hands flat onto the ground. Feel the earth underneath you. And slowly start to make your way into tabletop. Hands in knees position. Pause here. Start to think about the space between your waistline and your shoulders. And think about growing long there. So the crown of your head lifting forward, your tailbone pulling back. So a really conscious tabletop here today. And let's start to manipulate that middle part, that torso aspect, by moving into cow on an inhale, looking up. Shoulders roll away from the neck and the ears. Pelvis tilts forwards, that tailbone lifts up and back. And then exhale, go in the opposite direction, really pushing the ground away, chin into the chest. Two more times like that. Now coming back into your tabletop. Keep your hips on top of your knees. Start to walk the hands forward, coming up onto the fingertips. So your hands are kind of like spiders right now. And the tendency here is for the shoulders to collapse in toward the neck and the ears, the elbows to sort of kick out. So go the opposite with that. So roll your shoulders away from your neck and your ears, and then squeeze your elbows in toward parallel. Okay, going to that heart melting pose, sometimes called Anahatasana. Now you see I can't lower all the way down to the floor without losing that rotation, but that's all right because I'm getting a lot of sensation and opening in the shoulders. If you can't put your forehead down, your chin down, or even your heart down, go for it. But don't sacrifice the integrity of the shoulders and the arms here. One more deep breath. Now to get out of this, you push the ground away, lift yourself up and out. Hands can walk back and lower into a child's pose. From your child's pose, again, the hands extending out. Start to walk the hands over, like if you were like sitting in the center of a old school clock, you're going to walk your hands over towards like 10 and 11. Now, your right hand, You're going to glue that into the ground. Well, before you glue it, let's walk it a little bit more forward. So like walk it a little bit more towards probably like 11 o'clock. Now glue it. Hand comes flat, glue it. Don't let it leave there. And now try to sit your hips back a little bit more without letting that right hand move. Now the left hand can actually help to push the hips back while the right hand stays glued. And then slowly walk the hands back to center. Again, if we're still in the center of that clock, we're now going to walk our hands over towards 1 and 2 o'clock. So essentially my left hand is like towards 1, my right hand is towards 2 because they're a little bit apart. I'm going to crawl that left hand as close as I can towards the 1 o'clock and then glue it. Keep it there. Let the hips sink back. Maybe my right hand helps to push it away. Relaxing the head and the neck. And then release back to center. And shift yourself back into tabletop position as you push back to downward facing dog. Now in downward facing dog, bend the knees here, bend both of them, and then straighten the left leg. Try to get your left heel as close to the floor as you can. And use your hands to really push the ground away, still staying in that downward facing dog position, not shifting towards plank. It's a common tendency. And then switch sides, right? So bend the left knee, straighten the right leg, right heel sinks toward the ground, hips pull up and back, shoulders roll away from the neck and the ears. Nice. Now come back to center. Straighten the knees as much as you can. If they're completely straight, try to drop the heels a bit more toward the floor. All the while, pelvis is tilted forward, tailbone's lifting up and back. Then you'll soften your knees and just start to walk your hands and your feet toward one another. Bend your knees a lot here. Let yourself hang out in sort of like a ragdoll type of shape. So the belly's hanging down, the head's hanging down, the arms are hanging down. Everything is just totally letting go here. And maybe those things that were stuck to you are starting to just kind of drip off. In fact, on your next exhale, take a horse breath. Now, keeping these knees bent, I want you to bend your elbows and grab onto your opposite elbows. Opposite elbows are forearms. And again, knees bent quite a bit here. So we're not straightening the legs all the way. We want a knee bend happening. Now, from here, what we're going to do is, again, pretend that we're on that center of the clock. All right? So if I'm in the center of the clock, like my head is sort of in that direction towards 12 o'clock, even though it's going straight downward into the center of the clock, but that's that direction. My right shoulder, if I were to continue it out to the right, is at 3 o'clock. My left shoulder, if I were to continue that out, that's at 9 o'clock. All right. So now that you've hopefully oriented yourself on this clock, I want you to straighten your right knee, bend your left knee, or keep the left knee bent, I should say. Now, again, remember, you're in the center of the clock with the right leg straight. What I want you to do is start to rotate your right elbow and your right shoulder, which are now pointing towards 3 o'clock. Slowly start to rotate them away from your hip, away from your right leg, as if they were going counterclockwise. So they're moving sort of towards 2 o'clock. Now, maybe you lean that right hip out to the side a little bit. Drop your head and neck. Oh, yeah, keep breathing. And then use your left hand and pull that right elbow down toward the floor as you maybe rotate your torso a little bit more. Finish an exhale. Don't be in a rush. And as you inhale, start to bend both knees, come back to center. We'll do the other side. Straighten the left leg. Your left shoulder, your left elbow, sort of pointing towards 9 o'clock. We're going to take it clockwise now. as we're going to rotate the left shoulder, the left elbow towards 10, 10:30 maybe, all the while keeping that left leg straight, right knee bent. Maybe lean that left hip over towards 9 a little bit. So this is where you start to like play and explore. Use the right hand to pull the left elbow down and away and create space. So I'm just sort of guiding you in these unique movements. It's your job to go slowly and use your breath. And if something feels good, like, and I'm telling you to like go somewhere else, do something else, you can listen to me, but you don't got to do it. You can linger where you're at and enjoy the feeling and the opening that you're creating. And again, don't be in a rush, but finish an exhale and slowly bring yourself back to center. And release the elbows down, release the head down, neck down. Bend both knees. Let your chin be the last thing to come up, and one vertebrae at a time, like you were stacking a pearl necklace. Slowly let yourself roll all the way up to center, up to the top, to standing mountain, shoulders back. Pause here for a minute, soften the face, soften the shoulders, root down into the feet. On your next inhale, let your arms float out to a T. Root down through your heels, root down through your tailbone. On an inhale, feel yourself get long through your torso. So from that waistline to the armpit, expanding the ribs. Take an exhale here, relaxing the shoulders while keeping the arms reaching out to the side. The next inhale, bring your arms up above your head, arm shoulder width apart. Now, you're going to take your left palm and turn it out to the side. Take your right hand and grab onto the left wrist. Now, really root down into that left heel, that left leg, and then start to pull up. And then as you exhale, lean on over to the right. Inhale, maybe back out a little bit, get length from the waist to the armpit. Draw those ribs in for rib cage loop. Keep that sealed in, and then start to pull that hand a little bit further as you maybe rotate the torso here. Now, just because we're rooting down in that left side doesn't mean the right side just falls asleep. We keep that active as well. And then inhale, lifting up to come out, switching sides. Turning the right palm out, left hand grabs onto that right wrist. Lift it up, so we're getting length. We're rooting down in the right side as we lean our way over to the left. Now in these side bends, the tendency can be for the rib cage to pop out and it turns it into more of a back bend. This is why our rib cage loop is so important. Some people describe it as like zipping your torso, like keeping everything in instead of pouring it all out. One more breath here. Inhale to get long in that right side body. And exhale, maybe explore a little bit deeper. Inhale, lift up to lift out. And then exhale, bend the knees, forward fold, dive it all the way in. Let that chin relax all the way into the chest. Maybe straighten your knees a little bit more. At the end of the exhale, and then start to walk your hands back into downward facing dog. Now again, you can, sometimes teachers will call this walk the dog, where you bend your right knee, straighten your left, take a breath there. After that breath, do the other side. All right. Bring your feet together at the back of your mat. On an inhale, lift your left leg up. Now, usually we keep our toes pointing down toward the carpet here. We're going to actually open the hip. We're talking a little bit about this in our last practice, is stacking the hips one on top of the other. Now, keep the shoulders square. Push down into the left hand a little bit more. Reach that left knee up. Hip stacks maybe a little bit. If you're going too much, you'll feel in your lower back. Just back out. Kind of go what makes sense to you. Now, as you exhale, you're going to step that left foot all the way forward in between the hands. Okay? Pause here. So we're in a high lunge with the hands down. All right, now your right hand's going to stay on the floor. So if it helps to have a block to raise that up, that can be really nice. Because if you're leaning down and collapsing, it's going to be hard to really rotate into this twist. So we're going to do a bit of an open twist. We're not going to take the elbow across the knee like we have in the past. Instead, we're going to keep this open. So this would be something that if you're pregnant, this would be the kind of twist you would do. Or if you just want to do this kind of twist. Left hand on the left hip. Okay, now pull that left hip pocket back while you still bend that left knee in toward the second and third toe. So we're kind of getting this left leg to work a little bit. And then we're going to start to twist the torso open. Keep your right leg straight and strong. This left hip keeps pulling back. Now go ahead, take this left arm up overhead. Keep the left hip pulling back, that left hip pocket pulling back, and now start to take this left arm up overhead alongside your ear. It's like really reaching it up to go over, up to go over. And again, you have to explore here. So I'm going to bend my right elbow to help me lower a little as I reach it and lift it. And then I'm going to start to like make a circle. I'm going to go left, a big circle around, and place the hand back down on to the floor. Drop your back knee down. Both hands inside for low lizard. Taking a breath or two just to feel into the hips, the groin, wherever you might be feeling sensation. Now, from here, we're going to go into kind of like an extended lizard, where, again, if we picture ourselves in the center of a clock, we're going to walk our hands towards 1 and 2 o'clock. And you're going to take this left hand, and you're going to crawl it a little bit more forward. So you're up on your kind of spider fingertips here. The right hand stays flat. So similar to what we did in child's pose before, we're going to use the right hand to push those hips back as those left fingertips keep crawling forward. One more deep breath here. Nice. And then go ahead, bring your hands back underneath for lizard for a moment. Tuck the back toes underneath. Lift the back knee up off the ground for high lizard. Now, start to walk your hands over to the right and pivot your feet until you're facing sort of the side of your mat. Your feet are wide apart. Now, with your toes straight forward or slightly turned in, we don't want them to be turned out, okay? Take a nice forward fold here. You can bend your knees as much as you need to. Let your head hang low. Inhale, come halfway up. And exhale, walk the hands back to the right foot as you spin, you turn everything back to the other side. Now this time, so we're in a high lunge, right? Hands are down. Left hand is going to be the one that roots down. So if you have to go get your block, go ahead. Right hand comes onto that right hip, and that's going to sort of pin it back. Peel the right shoulder open, coming into your open twist. Left leg is strong and straight. Now keep that going as you lift that right arm up, then slowly start to like lift it up and over, and see if you can find any kind of spot on your lower side back that you can breathe into. You might not. It's all right. You might feel it on your left leg. You might feel these in a lot of places, but you're just kind of exploring right now. seeing what you could find, and then keep reaching forward and keep reaching forward on this sort of angle out to the side. And then the right hand comes down, the left knee comes down, and you're in lizard. Setting up for extended lizard here in a moment, but don't be in a rush. Let your hips release. And then start to walk your hands over towards 10 and 11 o'clock. So again, your left hand, that stays flat. The right hand's the one that's going to come up onto sort of the TP style hand, and that's going to really reach and crawl. And the left hand is going to help push you back and maybe create some space in that right side of your body. One more breath here, really going for it. And we'll slowly come back to low lizard. Tuck the back toes underneath. Lift the back knee up off the ground. High lizard for a moment. And then slowly start to walk your hands back to the left. Pivot your toes. Make sure they're lined up straight or slightly inward. Take a forward fold, grabbing on the outside of the ankles or on the legs somewhere. Try to get a little bit deeper. Let your head hang low. Relax as best you can. All right, inhale, float up halfway. Hands come down. Walk yourself back over to the left foot. Pivot your toes. Turn everything. And then exhale back to downward facing dog. Bring your feet together. This time we'll keep the left heel down and reach the right leg up. Open up that hip. Push the right hand down. Like, don't let that right shoulder open up. Keep your right shoulder and left shoulder the same distance from the ground as that right hip tries to stack on top of the left, as the right knee lifts a little bit higher. Keep using your hands to push the ground away evenly. And then send that right foot in between the hands. If it gets stuck, it's all right. Right hand grabs it, yanks it forward. Turn the back heel down. Reach the left arm out. Come into warrior two. As you sink down into the legs, think about that waistline going down and then the side of the body, the torso lifting up, the armpits lifting up without the shoulders coming up to the ears. So you're just getting length in that area, knee bending towards second and third toe. Left hand gently on the left leg, right palm to the sky. Inhale, reverse warrior. Keep bending into that right knee as you lift up and back. Bend your right elbow, put the right hand behind your head, let your head hang heavy into that hand, reaching that elbow a little bit higher to the sky, dropping that right waistline down some more. And then release. Cartwheel the hands down, spin the back heel off the ground, drop the knee to the floor. Inhale for low lunge. In low lunge, the legs are active, scissoring together. You're squeezing your pelvic floor, that Mula Bandha technique. We're going to turn the right palm out to the side. Left hand's going to grab the right palm, lift it up. You bend over a little bit here. Just kind of feel that for a minute. Now let's try the other side. Left palm turns out, right hand grabs, reach that up and bend over to the right a little bit. Lower ribs draw in. Keep trying to bend into that right knee as you work that rib cage loop, using the hand to get length, and then hands come all the way down. Tuck the back toes underneath, leg up. And then spin yourself around, coming into a wide-legged forward fold. Keep walking the hands over to your left foot. I've turned myself around. Keep the back heel down, reach the right arm up, and come into Warrior Two for the second side. Waistline drops down evenly as you bend the knee toward second and third toe. Length in the side body. Right hand gently on the back leg, left palm to the sky. As you bend that left knee in, you reach the left arm up. Reverse warrior. Rib cage draws in here. Bend that top elbow. Let the head relax back into it without letting the rib cage stick out and that lower back pushing out. So you seal. I usually actually use my right hand. Seal it in. Zip it in. Rib cage loop. And then bend that knee and then go into it. Go ahead, cartwheel the hands on down. Let the back heel spin. Right knee to the floor for low lunge as you inhale. Okay, turn the left palm out. Grab on with the right hand, left wrist. Lean up and over. Okay, interesting, but now go to the other side. Right palm turns out. Left hand grabs onto right wrist. Lift that up. Now this can dump into your lower back if you're not using your rib cage loop. So whoosh, use that rib cage loop. Keep it in. Keep it in. Drag that right knee into the ground and forward. Last breath here. And then exhale, take it forward and all the way down. Tuck the back toes underneath, lift the back knee up off the ground, and walk your hands back towards center. Back to that wide-legged forward fold. Inhale, come halfway up like you would in half fold. Now, spin the heels in and turn the toes out. Hands come up onto the thighs and rest here for a moment. Drop your hips a little bit, bend your knees toward your second and third toe. So your knees are bending out because your toes are turned out. All right. So sometimes this pose is called temple pose. Sometimes it's called goddess pose. So what we're going to do is play with bringing our shoulders on top of the hips as we keep pushing it out to the side. Okay. Now, if you get any cramps or anything like that, you can back out, sort of move your hips as you need to. What we're going to try to do is sink in and bring the arms up overhead. Again, interlace the fingers except the pointer finger and the thumb. Keep breathing here, lifting up. Bend over toward the left. Maybe a little bit of a rotation here. Drawing those lower ribs in. Inhale, lift up. Exhale over to the right. Maybe bend down a little bit deeper into this one more time on each side. If you have to straighten your legs, go for it. You can ride one more. We're going to go into a forward fold after this with a wide leg. Make sure you turn your toes back to center before you forward fold. So the inhale lifts you out, hands come down, pivot the heels, toes are forward, and exhale, forward fold. Nice. Walk the hands over to your right foot and push on back to downward facing dog. Lower your knees, come into child's pose. And from child's pose again, walk your hands a little bit over and forward to the right. Crawl that left fingers forward. Use the right hand to push away, create some space. Take a breath there. Walk the hands over to the left, over towards 10 and 11 o'clock. Now the right fingertips are crawling. The left hand is helping you to push yourself back. All right, come on back to center. From child's pose, come on up to tabletop, and we're gonna come up into plank pose. Now from plank, what you're gonna do is you're going to drop both heels over to the right. So your feet are stacking one on top of the other. Now use your left hand for some balance here. Now, slowly just start to let your hips sag down. Now, if your elbow is kind of hypermobile, keep a micro bend here. If it starts moving all over the place, keep it bent. But otherwise, just start to drop and sag. It's okay if your right shoulder comes up towards your ear here. Let your hips get long. You could even come all the way down on that hip. Keep the right arm fairly straight. If your butt's sticking way back, you might have to kind of wiggle yourself forward so you're all in one line. And then switch sides. So lift yourself up, hand comes down, back to plank. And then roll both heels to the left, stack your feet one on top of the other, and then slowly start to sag the hips down. You can pause here if it feels good. You can keep lowering if you want a little bit more. Reach through the heels, stay active through the legs. But this is where if you're sticking your butt out, you're going to lose it. So make sure those hips stay in line with the legs. One more breath here. And then come on out, back to plank. Knees can come on down to the ground. Head back to child's pose for a moment. Gather your breath. Now from child's pose, walk your hands underneath your shoulders, roll yourself up, and then lift yourself up so you're standing on your knees, yeah? All right, so this is oftentimes called gate pose. And again, I'm mirroring you, so you're taking the left leg out to the side. And again, you don't want it forward, you don't want it back, you want it straight out from the hip. Heel down. Some people can put their foot all the way down. It's kind of difficult for me. So left hand rests gently on the left leg. Don't push the knee, please. Right hand reaches up, lifting it up, and then take it over the top. This left hand can start to walk its way down. The lower you can go. Keep that tailbone tucking underneath. So the pelvis is tilting backward. Ribs are drawing in to keep everything contained. And then you can even start to lean and reach a little bit more forward on an angle. See if you can find anything there. And then hand comes all the way down, switching sides. So the left knee comes down. Now the right leg is straight out to the side. Right hand gently relaxes on the leg. Inhale, left arm up. And exhale. Lean yourself over. Ribs draw in. Tailbone tucks. And use your diaphragm by inhaling so deeply that helps to accentuate the sensation of this stretch. Use your exhale to empty so completely that even the rib cage drawing in, the diaphragm drawing up, might even give you a little bit of sensation, especially from where the diaphragm connects behind the heart. And then again, maybe reaching forward a little bit. Again, that's trying to figure out that angle of how we get to this quadratus lumborum as we reach and then slowly come on up. All right. So this idea of reaching not only forward on the side, but also like angling a little bit is what we're going to play with now for our last couple of poses before we come down to the floor. So go ahead and bring yourself into downward facing dog, just for a moment. Bring the feet together. Right leg lifts up on inhale. Now, this is, you probably will want a block nearby if you have a block handy. Open up the hip, keep the shoulders square as the hips stack. Right knee lifts up, and then send it all the way through. All right. Drop the heel down. Inhale, cartwheel backwards into warrior two. And then shift yourself into extended side angle. Forearm on top of the thigh. Now, from here, you really want to keep this back leg super strong and straight, pushing through the heel, tucking your tailbone down toward that heel as well. Keep that happening. Give yourself a nice side body right here. This is kind of nice. But now what we're going to do, so we're stacking the shoulders. Now we're going to start to take this hand and we're going to let the torso rotate a little bit more toward the floor. And we're going to reach this left hand towards like 10 o'clock, towards 10:30, but actively pushing down into the heel. So we're trying to create this like bow over our pelvis and by our rib cage to really give some sensation there for that QL, quadratus lumborum. So really reach, really reach, and hand comes down. Straighten your front leg. Setting up for triangle, lift your torso up. Same kind of motion there. First, we'll go into normal triangle, reaching out, a little micro bend in our knee, 1 or 2 millimeters. Again, rotating the torso, shoulder stack on top. Now we're gonna lose that a little bit here. So let's stay into triangle for a second. Reach it alongside the ear. This can be nice. Again, left heel pushing down, back leg is active, tailbone tucks under. Now, go ahead and let that left shoulder sort of not be so stacked as you reach the left arm towards like 10 or 11 o'clock. Tuck that tailbone, reach that heel back. See, if you can find something here, you want to linger, go for it. Absolutely hang out. Otherwise, bring that left arm down. Now, start to bend this right knee. Hands can come down. Start to walk the back foot in. Grabbing my block here as we set up for half moon. So hand goes in front of the foot, a torso length, and then out to the right. It's my kickstand. Now, this left arm, left shoulder is going to keep hanging down, but my hips are going to try to stack one on top of the other. So I'm pushing down with my right hand for stability. My hips are rotating. I'm not worrying about my shoulders at this point. Now, of course, you could go into the classic half moon where, the shoulders stack one on top of the other, but it also feels really nice to reach that left heel back, keep that left leg straight, and let this left arm just kind of drip. Now, from here, we will open up, come into the classic version of it, but just for a moment, to now take this left arm up and over toward that 10 or 11 o'clock, reaching the heel back, tucking the tailbone down. So really emphasizing that side stretch, maybe playing with moving the torso. Again, you got to use your own body intelligence here and just find something that might work for you, something that's interesting, and then take the hand all the way down to the floor, take the foot down, and come on back to downward dog. Right heel stays down, left leg lifts. Whoops, we already did that, Sergi. All right. No, we didn't. I'm all over the place. You all know what we're doing. Here we go. Second side. Left leg does lift. Step it all the way forward. Spin the back heel down. Inhale just for a moment to warrior two. Shifting to extended side angle. Reach and root through that heel. Watch that tailbone want to stick out. Tuck it under. Arm alongside the ear. This might give you a nice oblique and side stretch. Now we're going to turn it a little bit towards 1 and 2 and see if we can't get a little bit more happening in this side lower back. So there's almost a little bit of a cat feel here as I reach. And then keep reaching forward, forward, and down. And now straighten the front leg, setting up for triangle. Inhale, reach it out. Left hip pocket pulls back. You can rotate the torso here. Come into the classic version of it. And then bring it alongside the ear. Rooting down through that right heel. Tucking the tailbone in. Drawing the lower ribs. And now start to let your torso rotate as you reach toward 1 and 2 o'clock. Keep reaching through that right heel. That's so important to anchor down and really create more length and stretch. And you got to breathe some life into it. Nice. Coming on out, bend the front knee, walk the back foot in. Get yourself set up for half moon. Again, forward and to the left. Go slowly. Keep your eyes focused on one thing. Start to stack the right hip on top of the left. Again, I'm in no rush to bring my shoulders with me. In fact, I rather like this version of it for this like side body work. You got to keep reaching the heel back, tucking the tailbone down. Keep coming back to that. You want to stack your shoulders for a minute, that's fine. But essentially what we're going to do is start to reach toward 1 and 2 o'clock. But I can't emphasize that tailbone tuck, heel reaching back. That's so crucial. Deep breath. Keep it even. Keep it easy. And then hand comes down. Step on back to downward facing dog just to neutralize. And come on down to your seat. All right. Now, let's just sit cross-legged for a moment. If you want to sit on a block, you can. Let's bring our hands back to the rib cage for a moment. Just kind of notice taking 3 breaths like we did to start. Breathing down, breathing out in all directions, and slightly up on our inhale. Exhale, retrace. Empty completely. 2 more times like that. We'll finish with the rotated version, the one-legged forward fold. I'm going to bring my right leg is extended. I'll bring my right elbow inside of my right knee. Peace fingers hook somewhere behind the leg, and then that knee flattens out to trap it. Left hand pushes down and opens that shoulder, and right there you might get something. Keep that, the left shoulder. Keep the left shoulder rolling back. Keep that left sit bone plugging in. And if you want to start to go a little bit further by reaching up, going over, doing the head hammock, leaning into it. Some of you might be able to grab onto the pinky edge of the foot. And if you can do that, just keep pulling and rotating your chest through. Now, in order for me to show you that and do this, my left side, that sit bone is like way up off the ground. So I'm not going to do that because remember, I want to keep that plugged in. About 3 more breaths here. And as you come out of this, think about sort of exploring. Think about like reaching, not toward the foot, but maybe going toward the center. Keep that tailbone tucked underneath and just slowly kind of explore as you come out of the pose. Sit up tall for a moment. Sometimes I get like a little bit of a lightheaded, good feeling, which I got just there. Thank you. Switching sides. So now with your left leg straight out, left elbow inside the leg, hook the peace fingers, straighten and trap. Okay. Now, right hand pushes down, roots down as the right shoulder rolls back as I lean back into this. It's like when I do this first thing in the morning, like I can hang out just in this position for a while. So depending on how your body is responding, don't feel rushed to go any deeper. And I say like deeper, like it's just like you don't have to change, you don't have to move. It's just these are ways to just challenge your awareness away from your breath, and your job is to stay with that awareness on the breath. You know the different options for your top arm, so choose the one that works best for you in this moment. Keep that right sit bone, right butt cheek plugged in. Right shoulder rolling back. And again, for those of you who are reaching for the outside of the foot, keep rotating that torso, pulling the heart between the arms as you rotate in, but keep that right sit bone in check. And then slowly lift up to come out. You can come onto your back for your final relaxation. You could take a cross-legged seat. But whatever you're doing, I want you to just notice that feeling of restriction, any feelings of getting pulled down or weighed down by things in your life, and just see if maybe that's a little bit less prevalent. Not to bring it like back into your awareness, I'm trying to remind you of that stuff, but my hope is that physically you're feeling a little bit of ease, and that there's a corresponding mental and emotional ease in the space that you've created for yourself. So I want you to enjoy that for at least the next 2 minutes, as long as 10 minutes, depending on how much time you have. And if ever the sort of fluctuations of your mind start to chatter to pull you away from that, you can just smile and let go of that for now. This is your time. Enjoy it.